I have gotten so many requests to do a deep dive on P. Diddy, and that is exactly what we are going to do today. P. Diddy has been making headlines for decades, some positive, some negative, but today in 2023, the layers of how much of a monster P. Diddy truly is at his core are beginning to be revealed. P. Diddy has been accused of horrific crimes ranging from domestic violence, arson, unalivings, ex-trafficking, human trafficking, just to name a few. Yet, he still remains one of the most successful men in the industry. The alarming thing to me about P. Diddy is the undeniable wake of death and destruction that follow P. Diddy wherever he goes, and it has been like that since the dawn of his career. Diddy has been shamelessly displaying horrific behavior for decades, but now that Cassie has spoken out, people are starting to listen. Now, we'll get to Cassie in a moment. For the sake of keeping this deep dive as easy and comprehensible to follow, I will be referring to P. Diddy, Sean Combs as Diddy throughout this entire deep dive. As always, let's go back to the very beginning. Sean John Combs was born on November 4th of 1969 in Harlem, New York. He spent his early childhood being raised in Mount Vernon, New York. Diddy was raised primarily by his mother, Janice Combs, after his father, Melvin Combs, was unalived while sitting in his vehicle near Central Park when Diddy was just 2 years old. Before his untimely passing, Melvin Combs served in the United States Air Force, and he was also close friends with a very well-known illegal substance dealer, which may have contributed to his early passing. Diddy's mother, Janice, worked a busy schedule as a model and a teacher's assistant to support her son. As a child, Diddy was nicknamed Puffy because when he would get frustrated or angry, he would huff and puff. After graduating high school, Diddy was accepted into Howard University, where he was majoring in business. Throughout college, Diddy had a reputation for being a wild partier and throwing absolute ragers. Diddy did not complete college, though. He did drop out after his sophomore year. Diddy dropped out of college because he had high aspirations to join the music industry. After dropping out of college in 1990, when Diddy was about 21 years old, he pursued an opportunity to work an internship position at New York's Uptown Records. Uptown Records was a record label that was founded in 1986 by musician Andre Harrell. Diddy was accepted into the internship position, and he had the opportunity to work closely with well-known artists such as Heavy D, Al B. Shore.
I got my man DJ Baltimore. I got the brothers Black, Woody Rock, but that's the point. Heavy D, the boys, and Groove Beach. And you know what? We getting money, baby. Kick it. Uptown, 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 DJ. Grab a hold of yourself and check this tempo. Remember these rhymes. Heavy D said so. The overweight twink with an axe to swing. And our barbecue thing.
He would even meet the future mother of some of his children, Kim Porter. Kim Porter was working as a personal assistant and receptionist to the founder Andre Harrell, married to Uptown Records signee Al B. Shore. In 1991, Kim and Al B. Shore had their first child together, but the couple would ultimately later divorce. I want you to just make a mental note of Kim Porter because we are going to dive further into her life and her tragic passing a little later on in this deep dive. This internship position that Diddy was accepted into would be the catalyst for Diddy's very successful career in the music industry. Through his internship, Diddy worked closely with many artists, helping to catapult their careers into the mainstream media. Because Diddy was working directly with the founder, Andre Harrell, this mentorship kind of relationship really helped to cultivate Diddy's love for the entertainment industry and production.
And all put together by, first this man in the middle here, and then he's passed it on to, I guess, his son. Protege.
Yes.
Puffy.
Yes.
Tell me a little bit about this man and why you like working with him.
Because, you know, he's not intimidated by youth, you know what I'm saying? He knows the importance of leaving a legacy behind. Because we need more adults out there that's going to teach the young, such as myself, and, you know, basically leave a legacy behind, leave something behind, you know.
And Andre, tell me a little bit about, if you didn't know that Andre Harrell over here in the middle, And people have been talking about you. I've been reading about you in the New York Times, and I'm sure there's a lot of people out here that hadn't heard from you before, but then saw that article in the Times and said, oh, okay, this young man's doing something. Because, you know, this guy always asks me what's my age. So you want to know what everybody's doing, how old they are. Andre, what's happening? Tell me about the new ventures that are going on at MCA.
Well, what we did, we just made a vertically integrated deal, which means that we do film, television, and records. And what we are able to do now is take our record stars and cross them into television and film, like a Heavy D. He'll have a television show next year and a film the following year.
Andre Harrell, Puff Daddy. See y'all in a minute.
One day while at work, a producer at Uptown Records did not show up for work as he was supposed to, so Andre Harrell gave Diddy the opportunity to step in for that producer, and Diddy got to produce his very first album. This album would go on to sell over 2 million copies, and Diddy quickly became a very respected name at Uptown Records. Colleagues were amazed at the talent that Diddy was displaying when it came to music production and directing artists, despite the fact that he had never had any kind of education in. In 1991, Diddy was starting to do a lot of big promoting gigs for some of the artists signed to Uptown Records. One of these promoting gigs would unfortunately go extremely wrong, and it would result in multiple lives lost. For this promoting gig, it was a charity event. It was a charity basketball game and an AIDS fundraiser. And Diddy was in attendance with artist Heavy D, and the venue was the City College of New York Gymnasium. This event was extremely oversold, resulting in the entire college gymnasium being filled beyond capacity. The event organizers and staff quickly lost control of the crowd and the situation, and this would unfortunately result in a stampede that would claim the lives of 9 individuals and injure 29 others.
And they were crushed against what? Other people, the walls,
Other
floors?
people, walls, floors. It was just a mad rush of people to one exit, is my understanding.
Sometimes I thought I was going to pass out because it was hot on that staircase. You know what I'm saying? And when they closed the doors, I knew something was going down.
This eerily reminds me of Astroworld, when Travis Scott held his music event and massively oversold the show and did not have adequate staff and resources to ensure his fans' safety, resulting in multiple deaths and multiple injuries. New York, Diddy, and Heavy D were all found equally liable for this terrible tragedy. Diddy would spend about the next decade settling dozens of wrongful death lawsuits, as well as dozens of personal injury lawsuits. In 1993, Andre Harrell fired Diddy from Uptown Records. Two were starting to have trouble seeing eye to eye, and as Diddy said once in an interview, there can't be 2 kings in one castle. Diddy was supposedly not being respectful to Andre Harrell and the way he wanted to run his label, and he was not being respectful to his leadership, so eventually Andre had to let him go. But in later interviews, Andre Harrell did say that the only reason that he fired Diddy from Uptown Records was simply to make him more rich and more famous. Diddy has described that this severance of employment was the absolute best thing that ever happened to his career, because it did exactly what Andre said it would do. It made him really rich and really famous. The reason why Diddy was not upset about the split between him and Uptown Records was due to the fact that the rapper Notorious B.I.G, or Biggie, was not able to put out music underneath Uptown Records. The label's distributor, MCA Records, was not interested in putting out music, spoke so candidly about the reality of growing up running the streets. In early 1993, Diddy established his own label, Bad Boy Entertainment. Diddy would soon be producing singles for Biggie, which was massively successful. Diddy would go on to sign and work with very notable artists, household names such as Aretha Franklin, Usher, Boyz II Men, TLC, Lil' Kim, Mariah Carey, just to name a few. These household names can credit many of their chart-topping hits to the production work of Diddy and his team, known as the Hitmen. That same year, Diddy and his on and off again girlfriend, Misa Hilton, welcomed their first child into the world. The couple named this little boy Justin Combs. Throughout the mid-90s and the early 2000s, there was also another very popular record label that signed many artists who we still listen to today, and that label was known as Death Row Records. It was a West Coast-based label, opposed to Bad Boy Entertainment, which was an East Coast label. The label was founded by Dr. Dre, the DOC, and Suge Knight. there have been many names you would recognize that have been signed to Death Row Records, such as Tupac and Snoop Dogg. I share this information because up until about 1994, Death Row Records, as well as Bad Boy Productions, were able to coexist in the industry fairly well, it seems, but that would quickly change. In 1994, Tupac, who was not quite yet signed to Death Row Records at this time, was walking into a recording studio in Times Square. While walking inside, Tupac was ambushed and a weapon was discharged into Tupac's body multiple times.
Police say controversial rap star Tupac Shakur was entering the street-level lobby of an 8th-floor recording studio near New York's Times Square after midnight when 3 robbers confronted him and his friends.
They ordered him to the floor. Tupac resisted. He was shot numerous times, at least twice in the head, once in the left arm, once in the thigh, once in the groin area.
Shakur and his manager were hospitalized, Shakur undergoing an operation. The 3 assailants got away with jewelry, including about $40,000 worth of Shakur's gold chains and a ring.
Tupac was certain that Biggie had either set up that hit for him or he had to at least have been aware of it. From that moment forward, Tupac wanted absolutely nothing to do with Bad Boy Entertainment. Now, I'm really not going to get too much into the details of Tupac because I really want us to stay focused on this Diddy timeline, but I think it's important to know that during this time in Tupac's career, he was dealing with a lot of legal issues, including arrests for multiple assaults as well as a actual assault that would ultimately land him behind bars. In early 1995, Tupac was sentenced to 18 months to 4.5 years behind bars. After Tupac spent 8 months behind bars, one of the co-founders of Death Row Records offered to pay $3 million to get Tupac out early, but only if Tupac signed to Death Row Records upon his release. And that's exactly what happened. And of course, when Tupac was released from prison, he was still just as angry about what happened to him in 1994 and still had a lot of anger towards Bad Boy Entertainment. Feuding between the 2 labels began ultimately immediately after Tupac was released from prison. Tupac's career was headed in a massive upward trajectory. He was constantly throwing shade and dissing members of Bad Boy Entertainment, and Bad Boy Entertainment artists would do the same back. I'm not going to get into every detail of every ongoing feud that was going on between these artists and these labels, but when we do our Tupac deep dive, we will get more into the details of what was going on between these 2 labels. In a nutshell, there were chains snatched, massive brawls, hits put out, constant disses made back and forth. It was described as a very culturally tense time within the industry. Both sides were engaging in a great deal of violence. Diddy, who had many friends that were members of the South Side, allegedly put out a $1 million bounty on Tupac and Suge Knight's head. These gang-affiliated friends of Diddy's were allegedly instructed to facilitate the hit on Diddy's behalf. And on September 7th of 1996, Tupac and Suge Knight were unfortunately both shot in a drive-by shooting in Las Vegas, Nevada. The shooting would sadly claim the life of Tupac and injure Suge Knight in the process, but he would not pass away from his injuries. Fans have always assumed that Diddy had a hand in facilitating this hit. Even today, speculation has not died down. Despite being involved in the music industry for years, Diddy did not release his first single until 1997. Also, in 1997, one of Bad Boy Entertainment's most successful and most popular artists, Biggie Smalls, was unfortunately unalived in a drive-by shooting. Biggie's life was taken on March 9th of 1997. He was only 24 years old at the time of his passing. Like Tupac, Biggie's shocking, sudden passing is another topic for fans to speculate about. People were speculating that it could be a gang-related issue or a retaliation, or perhaps Diddy put the hit out on Biggie as he was trying to step into the music industry from the other side of the production booth. Perhaps he no longer saw Biggie as a co-worker, but now as a competition. Just my speculations, of course. The community is largely divided on this allegation. Many speculate that Diddy and Biggie were absolute best friends and Diddy would never ever hurt Biggie. Others say Diddy and Biggie had very much of a employee-boss kind of relationship, and the best friend persona was simply for show. Again, we're not going to get too far into the details and circumstances surrounding Biggie's passing. That is something I can get into if you guys are interested in a Biggie deep dive. Despite the untimely passing of the man who the media perceived as Diddy's best friend, just a couple months after Biggie passed, Diddy's very own music career began to take off. The very first song that Diddy released went to #1 on Billboard's Hot 100, and it stayed on the charts for 28 weeks. I'm not going to touch on every single hit, every single award that Diddy has ever won, but again, in a nutshell, in present day, Diddy has received a total of 14 Grammy nominations and has won a total of 3 Grammys. We are now going to fast forward just a little bit to April of 1999. So up until this point, Diddy had really escaped a lot of legal consequences or legal ramifications, even though he had been allegedly involved in many violent situations leading up to this point. But that would change in 1999 when Diddy was arrested for beating up Steve Stout, who was an executive at Interscope Records at the time. Steve described this attack as Diddy and 2 accomplices barging into his office and beating him mercilessly. Steve reported that Diddy not only punched him in the face, he also picked his phone up and began bashing him in the head with his phone. And let's remember, this was 1999. Did not have the light as a feather iPhone 13. We were dealing with the phones with the receivers, so that could definitely do some damage to someone's head.
Combs was arrested on charges of second-degree assault and criminal mischief in connection with last Thursday's alleged attack on Interscope executive Steve Stout. According to the police report, Combs and 2 other unidentified men entered Stout's office around 4:30 p.m. and attacked him, leaving him with a fractured arm and numerous cuts and bruises.
Diddy and his 2 accomplices then ransacked Steve's office and left. The reason for this ridiculous attack was because Diddy was upset and having second thoughts about a music video that he appeared in with fellow artist Nas. Diddy had pushed for a change to be made in the music video where he was depicted being crucified on the cross, a crown of thorns on his head. Production had to go $14,000 over budget to accommodate the changes that Diddy wanted, but last minute, after speaking to his mother, Diddy decided that that scene was blasphemous and it absolutely could not be seen. Diddy was demanding that Steve Stout take out that scene from the music video. But the situation was completely out of Steve's hands because the music video had already been sent to MTV. And Diddy was aware of this. He knew there was nothing that Steve could do. Diddy was arrested soon after, but paid a $15,000 bail and was quickly released. Diddy apologized to Steve Stout, which prompted Steve to ask the Manhattan DA to drop all charges surrounding him and Diddy. The 2 ultimately settled things outside of court, and Diddy ultimately paid Steve a total of $500,000 as a settlement. Later in 1999, Diddy and his entourage were accused of attacking interviewer Roger Mills. During an interview that Roger was doing with Diddy, Roger asked Diddy if he had any involvement in Biggie's unaliving. Diddy became absolutely enraged and irate by this question and quickly ended the interview. Diddy asked Roger if he could purchase the interview in its entirety, and Roger did not accept this offer. Roger's refusal allegedly really set Diddy off, and him and some of the men who he was with began to allegedly attack Roger. Roger reported that his neck was twisted and his arm was injured in this attack, and his cameras were destroyed, and the tape of the interview was taken off of his person. Police investigated the situation, but no arrests were ever made, but Roger did later sue Diddy for this attack. If 1999 couldn't have been a more tumultuous year for Diddy, he would still find himself in more legal trouble before Y2K even rolled around. On December 29th of 1999, Diddy was at a New York club with his girlfriend at the time, Jennifer Lopez, as well as a friend and rapper who went by Shine. Diddy, Jennifer, and Shine were leaving the club around 2 a.m. when Diddy accidentally knocked a drink out of a clubgoer's hand, spilling it all over him. This man was completely enraged at the fact that he had just been doused in his drink, and an argument ensued between that clubgoer and Diddy. Diddy and this clubgoer began hurling insults back and forth at one another. At one point, there was a wad of cash thrown at Diddy. When it hit him, it flew into the air and started flying all over the entrance of the club like confetti. This prompted the clubgoers to all go wild, and they were all frantically reaching and grabbing for any cash they could get their hands on. I don't blame them. Shine then pulled out a semi-automatic weapon, began shooting into the crowd. Shine was aiming for the clubgoer that Diddy was arguing with, but Shine, I guess, is not a very good shot at all because he missed that clubgoer completely. Instead, they hit 3 innocent bystanders, one being hit in the face by a bullet. Diddy then pulled out a weapon of his own and fired a shot into the ceiling of the packed nightclub. After this terrifying ordeal, Diddy and Jennifer hopped in a car and left the scene. But when they ran a red light, they were pulled over by police. Diddy and Jennifer were in possession of a stolen weapon. Subsequently, they were both arrested. Charges against Jennifer Lopez were eventually dropped, but Diddy would not be so lucky. Diddy was charged with 4 weapons-related charges, and he was also charged with bribery. This bribery charge came into play because Diddy's driver admitted that Diddy tried to bribe him with cash into admitting that he was the owner of the weapon and not Diddy. You'll never guess who Diddy hired for his defense attorney. None other than the infamous Johnny Cochran. Yes, the same Johnny Cochran who is responsible for getting O.J. Simpson acquitted on unaliving charges of his ex-wife and her friend. Furthermore, you'll never guess what the verdict of the trial was. Diddy was cleared of all charges and found not guilty, but Shine was convicted of 5 different charges and was sentenced to 10 years behind bars. Diddy did also have to pay out an undisclosed amount to the clubgoer who he initially had knocked the drink out of his hand. But other than that, Diddy really didn't have any repercussions for this situation. Soon after the trial ended, Diddy and Jennifer broke up. In 2001, Diddy was arrested for driving with a suspended license, which is easily the most tame and most mild out of all criminal infractions that Diddy has been involved in. Allegedly. Despite legal troubles and breakups, Diddy was still having a massively successful career. In 2005 and 2007, Diddy had to settle a couple more civil lawsuits that were mostly surrounding projects that people had paid for and Diddy had not complete, or he had not paid them for a service that they had provided. Not a lot of juicy details with those civil lawsuits. In 2007, Diddy was sued by a man who met him at an Oscars after party. This man accused Diddy of punching him in the face as they were leaving the Oscars after party, and Diddy quietly settled this matter outside of court. In 2010, Diddy was sued by one of his former music executives, Francesca Spiro, whom was in her 50s, for age discrimination. Francesca reported that she was fired from Bad Boy Entertainment simply for her age. She explained that they had no reason to fire her, and her work performance and work history was nothing but excellent. Diddy had to pay Francesca $1 million to settle this case. In technically 2011, Diddy was sued for allegedly attacking a man at a New Year's Eve party. The reason that this man was attacked by Diddy and his entourage was because he snapped a photo of Diddy outside of this New Year's Eve party, and I guess Diddy did not like that. Diddy and his entourage allegedly jumped this man, and it took a total of 7 years to resolve this matter in court, and it was ultimately agreed upon that Diddy would pay out $35,000 to the man he had allegedly attacked, as long as that man did not hold any of them or their insurance liable. In 2015, Diddy's longtime personal chef filed a lawsuit claiming that she had been subjected to sexual harassment at the hands of Diddy. She also regularly had to work unprecedented hours and was not properly compensated for her work. This chef shared in her lawsuit that Diddy would often require her to make him big meals after he had relations with a partner, and on one occasion when she brought his meal up to him, Diddy opened the door and was allegedly fully nude. This lawsuit claims that Diddy then allegedly asked his chef if she was attracted to his nude body. The chef was actually fired soon after this incident, and that is what prompted her to file a lawsuit. This matter, like always, was settled outside of court for an undisclosed amount. In 2015, Diddy was arrested for attacking his son's UCLA football coach, Sal Alosi, with a kettlebell. Why in the world would Diddy do this? Because Sal raised his voice at Diddy's son during practice. All charges were eventually dropped by the Los Angeles District Attorney. Isn't it amazing how our legal system is set up that so many can avoid any kind of legal repercussions for their terrible actions and their horrendous and dangerous behavior if they have enough money, fame, and power? Before we move forward on Diddy's timeline of criminal and civil matters, and before I share with you the recent lawsuits that have been brought against P. Diddy, I want to catch everyone up on the relationship between not only Kim Porter, the mother of some of his children, also want to catch you guys up on his relationship timeline with Cassie. And you'll see when we get into it, timelines are woven like a basket, do a lot of overlapping. Like we talked about earlier, Kim Porter was working as Andre Harrell's personal assistant and married to artist Albie Shore when Diddy began interning at Uptown Records, which was where Diddy and Kim ultimately met. Kim Porter was a lot more than just a personal assistant or a receptionist. She was an extremely talented model. She was a talented actress. She spent a great deal of the 90s strutting down runways and appearing in television and film. Kim was described by her friends as being warm and kind and friendly to everyone, as well as a fantastic mother to her children. In 1994, after Kim had divorced her ex-husband Albie Shore, Diddy and Kim began a romantic relationship. In 1998, the couple would welcome their first child together, a little boy that they named Christian. Diddy has admitted in later interviews that he was always attracted to Kim, even when she was married to Albie Shore. He always had eyes for her. A year after Christian was born, Diddy and Kim would break up, which would prove to be a very common pattern between this couple. They were often breaking up and making up and breaking up and making up. You will see it is a very, very common pattern. But it was during this specific breakup that Diddy began dating Jennifer Lopez, a relationship that spanned for a total of 2 years and ultimately ended after Diddy's trial. But throughout his relationship with Jennifer, Diddy has admitted that he was seeing Kim on the side throughout the entirety of the relationship. Or I guess he was seeing Jennifer on the side, depending on how you look at it. In 2001, Kim Porter sued Diddy for additional child support as well as to establish paternity. Kim wanted Christian to legally be recognized as Diddy's son. Shortly after Jennifer and Diddy broke up, Kim and Diddy got back together around 2002, 2003. In 2004, the wife of Russell Simmons, as well as very close friend of Kim Porter, as well as the designer behind the brand Baby Phat, Kimora Lee Simmons, revealed to the media that she had said something recently to Diddy that had made him so angry that he threatened to hit her. And at this time, Kimora was pregnant. It was about this time when people began to realize that Diddy has a very hot temper and is most certainly not afraid or ashamed to put his hands on a woman, or at least threaten to. Diddy later publicly apologized to Kimora for his temper, but Kimora has been a long-time anti-Diddy figure. In 2005, during a season of time when Kim and Diddy were back on, Kim and Diddy were on his yacht in Saint Tropez, and they got into an argument. During this argument, Kim's nose was broken. It was reported that Kim had accidentally broken her own nose by accidentally slipping and hitting her face off of a table. But that never sat right with anybody. In a later interview, Mark Curry, a former member of Bad Boys Entertainment, confirmed millions of people's suspicions and shared that Diddy was responsible for breaking Kim's nose that night.
Speaking of Kim Porter, because you knew Kim Porter, is it true that Diddy broke her nose?
Bust her nose, man. It was all, Insecurities.
In 2006, Diddy began working closely with the singer Cassie and her music producer boyfriend Ryan Leslie. Rumors started to swirl about an affair going on between Cassie and Diddy, but these rumors were quickly shut down by both Cassie and Diddy's representatives, and Cassie even assured the public that her and Diddy had a father-daughter-like relationship, and Diddy was very protective of her. On December 21st of 2006, Kim and Diddy welcomed twin little girls into the world, Delilah Starr and Jessie James. The couple now had 3 children together, as well as 2 other children from separate relationships. Despite their ever-growing family, Diddy had no desire to marry Kim, and he made himself very clear about this many times publicly. In 2007, things got really bad between Diddy and Kim, because it was leaked to the press that Diddy was a father of another child from a different relationship, and this little girl was born just a few months before his twins with Kim were born. Little baby girl's name is Chance Combs, and she was born on July 20th of 2006. The mother of Chance is a businesswoman and longtime friend of Diddy named Sarah Chapman, and it was later discovered that Diddy had been hooking up with Sarah on and off just as long as he had been hooking up with Kim on and off. Kim Porter was fed up with this entire situation. Understandably, I do not know what I would do in that situation. But ultimately, Kim decided to end things with Diddy again. Kim waited until Diddy was out of town for work, and she quickly packed up the entire home, including all of the furniture, and left with herself, her things, and her children. Diddy was a very controlling individual, not only to his partners, but also in other aspects of his life. So I assume Kim knew that Diddy wasn't going to just let her walk away from him. She knew she had to do it quickly and discreetly. But in 2008, Diddy and Kim were seen at a party in Hollywood being very loving and affectionate to one another, and a lot of people started to assume that maybe they got back together. But in fact, Diddy had his sights set on someone else, a much younger woman, Cassie, who had just recently broken up from her music producing boyfriend, Ryan Leslie. In May 2008, specifically on Mother's Day of May 2008, Diddy and Cassie were spotted at Central Park laying on some very public PDA on one another. It was later discovered that Diddy and Cassie had been seeing each other for quite some time before this public outing, but they would not confirm that they were publicly in a relationship until 2012. When Diddy and Cassie began dating, Cassie was 19 years old and Diddy was 37. And let's not forget that Cassie and Diddy met when Cassie was 16 turning 17, and she described their relationship as a father-daughter relationship. And then later they pop out on the scene as a couple. Throughout Diddy and Cassie's relationship, there were often speculations that Diddy was being abusive to Cassie. At one time, she was even seen out in public, and her face clearly looked like she had been beat up. But no one could ever really figure out what the dynamic of the relationship even was to know that Cassie was in serious danger. Throughout 2008 and 2009, Diddy was seen at different events. Sometimes he would be with Kim and sometimes he would be with Cassie. So people were very unsure about what P. Diddy's relationship status actually was, but many chalked it up to just him and Kim having a great co-parenting relationship, and he just had no problems being seen with the mother of his child, despite the fact that he was being seen publicly with another woman. Even though things seemed weird from the outside, I can guarantee things were a lot weirder behind closed doors. Recently, Cassie has shared with us that in 2009, Diddy began pressuring her to get breast implants, which she agreed to. The very next day, Diddy allegedly forced Cassie to get the breast implants removed because he thought they were too big. Cassie's plastic surgeon explained how dangerous it was for them to put Cassie back under and remove the breast implants that had just been placed. The plastic surgeon recommended at least time to heal before she went back under, but Diddy demanded that they were taken out immediately. And that's what happened. Cassie was put under and her implants were removed. The issues with control and insecurity are things that Diddy very clearly has issues with. It's kind of frightening to see how much this grown man was able to manipulate and take advantage. Cassie was very young and impressionable at this time, and I cannot imagine the turmoil she was going through in this very messy situation. Once 2010 rolled around, it was pretty evident that Kim had moved on, she began dating, and Diddy was being seen out a lot with Cassie. In May of 2010, Diddy bought Kim and the children a 6-bedroom home in California, but little did Kim know, Diddy had installed hidden cameras all throughout the home, audio surveillance throughout the home, and he also had all the phones wiretapped. Also in 2010, Kim began dating the actor Jackie Long. Despite being rumored to be in a relationship with Cassie at the time, this drove Diddy absolutely insane. Diddy was furious that Kim had moved on, despite the fact that he was being seen out with other women regularly. And Diddy began sending game over threats to Jackie Long. Ultimately, Diddy began stalking Kim Porter's new boyfriend. Diddy would call Jackie's phone at all hours of the day or night and tell Jackie that he was going to erase him off of the face of the earth, all while maintaining a relationship with Cassie. Jackie Long took Diddy's threats very seriously and took them straight to the police, especially because of the close proximity Diddy had with so many mysterious unalivings and people going missing. He was not about to play into Diddy's games. Kim and Jackie's relationship soon fizzled after this. After Kim and Jackie's relationship ended, shockingly, Kim got back together with Diddy. In December of 2010, Kim and Diddy were spotted being very affectionate, very loving, and packing on the PDA on Diddy's yacht. But just a few days later, Diddy rang in the new year on his yacht with Cassie on his arm. In April of 2011, Cassie and Diddy were spotted vacationing together, and they still had not admitted to the public that they were in a relationship of any kind. It appeared that Diddy was publicly bouncing back and forth between Kim and Cassie, and obviously whoever he was bouncing back and forth with privately behind the scenes. Later in 2011, Diddy was seen out in public with Cameron Diaz, of all people. Definitely a more age-appropriate pick than Cassie, as Cameron Diaz was 39 at the time and Diddy was 42. It was later discovered that Cameron and Diddy had been hooking up off and on since 2008, but they were very clear that they were only friends and had no plans of dating or being in a relationship. I just want to interject this really quickly. Do you guys remember earlier we were speaking about the artist Heavy D, and he was involved in the City College of New York's charity fundraising event that went terribly wrong? It was this year, specifically November 8th of 2011, when Heavy D would unexpectedly pass away. Heavy D was just 44 years old at the time of his passing, and he shockingly just suddenly collapsed outside of his home in Beverly Hills. Heavy D's cause of death was initially thought to be complications from pneumonia, as in the days leading up to his passing, Heavy D was feeling very sick and told his family that he was experiencing pneumonia-like symptoms. Days before he passed away, Heavy D had gone to his doctor to get medications to help him clear up the lung infection that he was dealing with. It was later discovered after an autopsy was done that Heavy D passed away from a heart attack. At the time of his passing, Heavy D was trying to make a big comeback in the music industry, and many close to Heavy D said that before his passing, he had plans to write and publish his very own autobiography detailing his life in the industry. Okay, back to Kim and Diddy. I just really want to interject that because I think it's very interesting when people who are close to Diddy, who helped him succeed in his career, suddenly just pass away. New Year's Eve of 2011, Diddy and Kim hosted a lavish New Year's Eve party with dozens of A-list celebrities in attendance. Nearly all of Bad Boy Entertainment executives and the signed artists were all in attendance at the party, except for Cassie. But at midnight, Diddy tweeted out, "Happy New Year, baby girl," and this was confirmation for a lot of people that Diddy and Cassie were obviously dating. Cassie has later shared with us that in 2012, while attending a Paris Fashion Week with her boyfriend Diddy allegedly informed Cassie that he had plans to blow up the artist Kid Cudi's vehicle. Kid Cudi and Cassie are rumored to have had a fling, being the deeply insecure and jealous man that Diddy truly is on the inside. He simply could not handle this, and very shortly after Diddy had relayed that information to Cassie, Kid Cudi's vehicle blew up in his driveway. Kid Cudi and his representatives have confirmed this. This cycle of the back and forth between Kim and Cassie continued for a very long time. Cassie and Diddy were making up and breaking up and making up and breaking up, and then he would be seen with Kim, and people were just like, what is going on? But in 2015, when Cassie was overseas filming a movie, Diddy was spotted by paparazzi leaving a X shop with his ex, Kim. Diddy and Cassie broke up briefly after this incident, but within about a month, they were back on. In August of 2016, Cassie and Diddy got in a massive fight in which the police had to get involved. But of course, no charges were ever filed. It was during this time that Diddy allegedly leaked Cassie's nude photographs to the internet because he was angry that Cassie wanted to break up with him. This fight caused the couple to break up, but again, within a few weeks, they were back together publicly. Diddy rang in New Year's 2018 with both Cassie and Kim, and this was unfortunately going to be the very last New Year's Eve celebration that Kim would ever attend. Her autopsy report reads that her body was found unresponsive in her bed at just the age of 47 years old. In the days leading up to her tragic passing, Kim was feeling unwell. She was having flu-like symptoms and was reportedly diagnosed with pneumonia. Before Kim's passing, she was working on a tell-all book, and many believe that Diddy was very concerned about the information that Kim was going to be sharing about him in that book. Soon after Kim's passing, her first husband, as well as longtime signee of Bad Boy Entertainment, Albie Shore, shared publicly that he believed that the circumstances surrounding Kim's untimely passing were extremely suspicious. He made it very clear that there was no way Kim's life was taken by pneumonia. I do find the parallels between Heavy D's passing and Kim's passing very interesting. Kim Porter's autopsy is not congruent with the evidence that was found in her bedroom where she was found. Police discovered blood on Kim's pillowcases, as well as a trail of blood leading from the bed to her bathroom. And Kim's body was not found in her bed, as if she had passed away in her sleep. Her body was found on her bathroom floor. There had to be someone with some sort of connection who wanted this to go away that ultimately falsified reports. To this day, the public still suspects that P. Diddy did something to harm his ex, Kim Porter. Soon after Albie Shore made his public statement sharing that he did not believe that Kim passed away from pneumonia, he collapsed in the studio while working on new music, and he slipped into a coma for 2 months. While Albie Shore was in this coma, his kidneys began to shut down. He was in renal failure. Doctors were not hopeful after the 2-month mark came, and Albie Shore was still being kept alive by machines. But miraculously, Albie Shore did recover from this sudden and mysterious illness, but he had to receive a new liver to save his life. At the time that Albie Shore went into his coma, it was also well known that he was working on a tell-all book detailing his life in the industry and his relationship with his ex-wife, Kim. Many think that this mysterious illness was no mystery at all, and it was really just Diddy trying to take out anyone who could potentially spill any secrets about him. Days after Kim's passing, Diddy and Cassie were spotted out together publicly, but they would officially break up for good. Cassie went on to marry Alex Fine, and the couple went on to have 2 children together. I also do want to interject this into the timeline as well. On May 7th of 2020, Uptown Records founder Andre Harrell passed away at the age of 59 from a heart attack. Before his passing, Andre Harrell was rumored to be working on a tell-all book surrounding the history of Uptown Records and his time in the industry, but he would not have the opportunity to finish nor publish this.
Started with 5 people. Andre Harrell, Albie Shore, Heavy D, and Puffy. And Kim was the longest working employee because she was there from the very beginning. She was Andre's personal assistant. Kim is dead. Heavy D is dead. Andre Harrell is dead. The only 2 left are Puffy and Al almost died. Isn't that interesting? The survivors and the late of Uptown Records, they were all writing tell-all books. Andre was writing a book right before he died. Heavy D was working on a book before he died. Kim Porter was working on a book before she died. And Al B. Sure was working on the documentary of his life. And then he goes into a coma. Has Puffy ever been in a coma? Has anything happened to him? He must be the luckiest mother. Seems like everybody that worked at Uptown Records from the very beginning is gone. Just him. I guess Al disappointed you. You know, I speak for a reason.
So now that you guys are all caught up on the Kim timeline, the Cassie timeline, the Jennifer timeline, let's get back to the timeline of our civil and criminal suits. In 2022, a woman who claimed she was the niece of Kim Porter and had been working for years as a babysitter for Diddy sued Diddy for wrongful termination after she had shared to Diddy that she was pregnant and she was met with a termination notice. This young woman sued for wrongful termination, and I am not sure what the outcome of this case was or if it is still ongoing today. Also in 2022, Diddy shocked the world when he shared that he had become a father for the 7th time around. This little girl was born on December 10th of 2022, and she was named Love Sean Combs by Diddy and her mother, who was a cybersecurity professional as well as a model named Dana Tran. In 2023, present day, Cassie filed an explosive lawsuit that detailed years of horrific abuse that she dealt with at the hands of Diddy. Cassie revealed in this lawsuit that throughout the entirety of her relationship with Diddy from 2007 to 2018, Diddy was always very physically abusive to her. Cassie shared that Diddy would regularly slap her, beat her, kick her, and even stomp on her body in anger. These beatings would leave Cassie bruised and bloody, and she would have to hide out in a hotel for a week to heal so that the public would not see her with a black eye or a bloody nose. Cassie also expressed in this suit that she was a victim of SA at the hands of Diddy on multiple occasions. When Cassie and Diddy broke up for the final time, Cassie shared that Diddy broke into her home and R-worded her. She even detailed a time when her and Diddy were staying in a hotel together when an argument broke out. Hotel security witnessed Diddy throw a glass vase at Cassie, causing it to shatter all over the hallway, and they did nothing. Hotel security did nothing. Staff did nothing. In fact, Diddy offered to pay them $50,000 to have the full surveillance tape from the hallway, and they obliged. He was concerned that that tape was going to get leaked to the press and it was going to be exposed monster that he really is. I guess he just wasted $50,000 because we believe Cassie. Cassie details in her suit that throughout their relationship, Diddy was consistently and constantly feeding her substances and alcohol, and copious amounts at that. I want us to keep in mind the age gap and the power dynamic imbalance that is going on in this relationship. Diddy completely took advantage and manipulated Cassie's young and impressionable mind, and further manipulated and distorted her reality through feeding her substances that made it impossible for her to feel her feelings and know what was reality and what was not. Cassie also shared with us that Diddy was the only person who had access to her medical records. She didn't even have access herself without Diddy's permission. Cassie detailed a situation in her lawsuit where she was going to the doctor to get an MRI because she was suffering from memory loss from prolonged substance usage as well as multiple concussions from being beat savagely by Diddy. The results of this MRI went directly to Diddy, which is so sinister when you think about it. Cassie also informed us about sessions that she would regularly have to participate in that Diddy called freak-offs. Diddy would book hotel rooms and hire a gaggle of male escorts and then force Cassie to engage with each of these escorts, and Diddy would be filming it or watching the whole time. Cassie would also be fed a larger than normal cocktail of substances during these freak-offs, so high of doses that she would feel extremely sick during these freak-off sessions because she was not only engaging in an act that she did not want to and did not consent to, she was also sick from the substances that were coursing through her body. Cassie shared with us that she would often vomit because of how sick she was by the whole situation, but she was forced to come right back and continue performing for Diddy. It's like unimaginably horrific. During one specific incident that Cassie detailed in her lawsuit, Cassie was attending her birthday party, her own birthday party. And Diddy called her and told her that she needed to leave her own birthday party so that she could participate in a freak-off session. Cassie agreed, booked a hotel room, and invited a couple of her friends to meet her there so that she wasn't alone. When Diddy arrived, he was angry and intoxicated, and in his fit of anger, he picked up one of Cassie's friends and dangled her by the legs off of the 17th story balcony of the hotel room that they were staying in. After these frequent freak-offs, Cassie would have to lay in bed for days and be receiving IV fluids to flush out the massively high dose of substances that was in her body. Cassie and Diddy settled this lawsuit outside of court just a day after Cassie filed it, and Diddy's reps were very clear that Diddy settling this matter is not an admission of guilt. This lawsuit details that after dinner, Diddy allegedly drove this woman back to the recording studio, but when they arrived, she was unable to stand or walk. Diddy had allegedly spiked her drink at dinner, and she was losing control of the movement of her body. Diddy then proceeded to allegedly SA this woman. In this lawsuit, this woman alleges that Diddy filmed this entire interaction and then went on to show it to his friends, because she was later informed of the existence of the video when one of her male friends came to her and said that he had seen it. Days after this, a woman identified as Jane Doe came forward and shared that her and her friend were also SA'd by Diddy in 1991. Miss Jane Doe also lists singer Aaron Hall as one of the perpetrators who was involved in SA'ing her along with Diddy. That pretty much catches us up to speed on where we are with Diddy's legal issues right now. But honestly, there are more lawsuits coming out by the day. So by the time this video goes up, there might be multiple more lawsuits that have been filed against Diddy. Now, before we wrap this up, I do want to talk about the videos of Diddy and Justin Bieber that have been going around the internet. Old videos of Diddy and Justin Bieber have prompted a lot of people to feel concerned that Diddy has potentially done something to harm Justin Bieber. At the very least, Justin seems incredibly uncomfortable in these videos, but I'm not going to speculate too much. In general, it has been rumored for years that Diddy is a homosexual man. These rumors have been specifically fanned for a very long time by the rapper 50 Cent, as well as former television host Wendy Williams. For me personally, I just feel like that is a detail in all of this that really does not matter. It feels like an irrelevant detail to me, but I know I was going to get comments asking about it, so yes, he has been rumored to have had relationships with men as well as women, and I just don't think being bisexual is a scandal. So despite this being a multiple part series, there are many other stories and rumors out there floating around about Diddy. He's kind of one of those people, if you continue to dig, the more you'll find. Diddy will go down in history and be remembered as a monster who terrorized many, many women and allegedly facilitated tearing apart many, many families. There are no qualities of Diddy that are anywhere near respectable, and he only has himself to blame for this. There is no amount of money or fame that can protect you from the truth and her very best friend karma. Unfortunately for Diddy, I think that Cassie speaking out and coming forward opened up the floodgates and made a lot of other women feel safe and ready to come forward with their own experiences. I think there's a lot about Sean Combs, P.Diddy, Diddy, Puff Daddy that we will never know, but there is one thing that I do know for certain. Victims become survivors, and survivors hold the power to bring predators to their knees every time.